This is shit.
Features a jump button. No 2D fighting game should have a jump button. Up should be jump always. But here we are. And it took me until the internet to figure that out. It took me when I started playing Super Famicom games. Then I realized that Street Combat is just a graphic hack of a Ranma 1/2 game. Now there was a Ranma 1/2 game that did come out in the US. This is not that one. This one came out as Street Combat. Confusingly. I don't know if it was a license issue or there's like, nobody knows what Ranma is. We'll just call it Street Combat and do something else. I don't know. But yeah, same idea, same thing. Interesting. Wayne's World from THQ. This is during a time where THQ was kind of like the new LJN, if you will. Video based on the Saturday Night Live skit, and then there was the movie, and then let's make a video game based on Wayne's World. Now this one is better than the NES one, but it was just kind of fun to see on a Super Nintendo. It had, had the little digitized pictures, and it had the voice samples and stuff like that. It was maybe worth a one-day rental. Yoshi's Cookie for the Super Nintendo. There was an NES version. There was also a Game Boy version. And this is the Super Nintendo version. I loved it that Bulletproof Software had, licensing rights or whatever to take their puzzle game and add the familiar characters to it. And I do love this game. I mentioned that in my Nintendo video too. I don't think there's anybody on this planet who likes Yoshi's Cookie more than I do. I don't know what it is. It's just aligning the cookies all the way across, all the way down, keep going. I don't know. It's just a super fun, chill game. I still play it today. We had Brawl Brothers, which was the sequel to Rival Turf, and Rival Turf was kind of a favorite of mine when the Super Nintendo came out, because unlike Final Fight, it was 2 players simultaneous as a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and this time you have 5 players you can choose from. It doesn't matter how many players there are. Whoever does the wrestling moves, that's the person I'm playing as. Every time, 100%. Whoever has the wrestling, whoever's the wrestler, the X-Wrestler, or whatever, that's the person I'm playing as. Final Fight guys, Super Nintendo, I'm still playing as Hagar. It's that serious. And This one's fun. There's several of these games for the Super Nintendo, and I think they're great. I like them. I like them. Oh, The Lost Vikings. Man, was I a fan of The Lost Vikings when it came out. Great music, kind of a fun story, you know. And teamwork makes the dream work. The three different Vikings have different abilities. One can run, one has a weapon, one has a shield, and you have to, you know, switch back and forth between the different players to attack the enemy, and then block the laser, and then run and jump over a thing to hit the switch and stuff like that. A lot of that going on with this game. I'm a huge fan of The Lost Vikings. Check it out for sure. Oh, Bubsy came out in '93. Well, that explains everything. No, I'm just kidding. Bubsy gets a bad rep for, I think it was just like, it was overhyped as the new mascot, the new thing. This is the guy, this is the attitude, this and that. Didn't turn out that well, I don't think. I don't know. I remember when people first came out, I was like, that's, you know, it's the kind of Sonic ripoff. It wasn't really a Sonic ripoff. It tried too hard. It just be what it is. It's just it's a decent platformer. It's a decent run and jump kind of style game. And it features my favorite idle animation of all time. To this day, my favorite idle animation of all time comes from Bubsy for the Super Nintendo. It's this right here. That's the best. Never mind Bubsy, we had Shadowrun in 1993. Shadowrun. Now, this is the Super Nintendo version of Shadowrun. There's a lot of people who say the Genesis version is better. I played it mostly on the Super Nintendo. This was the Shadowrun that I played. Both are completely different games. And this game would have been easier with a mouse, I think. But, I mean, it works okay just by using the D-pad. It just seems like it was more of a PC-style game that happens to be on the Super Nintendo. And a lot of those, I liked the idea that I could do that. I would never play them all the way through. But it was cool that we had Shadowrun, at least the brand. You ever played Tasmania? Well, I mean, it's interesting enough. This is another one that had, you know, there's also a version of Tasmania on the Genesis. Again, two completely different games. That one's more of a platformer. This one's more of a racing game? I don't know what you would consider this game. But yeah, we certainly had it. Batman Returns came out on the Super Nintendo as well as the NES. You saw that in the NES video. This one I liked more. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. It's just a one-player style brawler type game. And it's fine for what it is. It was okay. I mean, again, this was one of those games, it was worth the rental. Because you could rent it, you could play it that weekend, beat it that weekend, bring it right back and say, okay, that was cool. And I like the fact that you could take enemies and throw them in the background to, like, smash windows and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of fun. Aki and Rocky, this is a game that we could beat it that weekend, bring it right back and say, okay, that was cool. And I like the fact that you could take enemies and throw them in the background to, like, smash windows and stuff like that. I thought that was kind of fun. Aki and Rocky, this is a game that, oh boy, it was nice because, I mean, old school fans know, it's Kiki Kai Kai. I mean, this came out for the Famicom Disk System, it came out for other stuff too. Was it on, I think it was on PC or PC Engine? I think it was. And this is that kind of bright, colorful, vivid style. Looks a little bit like a Legend of the Mystical Ninja-ish. I think a lot of people compared that to this, because a lot of times this was the one that they played first. They didn't even know about the other ones. This is the one. And I'm so happy that this happened. So, super fun game. 2 players simultaneous if you'd like. It's the one to play, man. It's awesome. I love it. Oh, the Riggs bedroom had mini a rock and roll racing night. Whoa, that sounded weird. I rented this game a lot. My friends and I, we love this game. And why wouldn't you love this game? It has, like, licensed music for some of the tracks anyway, and it plays like RC Pro-Am. It's basically RC Pro-Am, but with, like, a rock and roll vibe and everything. It's great. It's perfect. It's almost the perfect game. If it was like 4 players simultaneous, that'd be something. I wish we would have a revamped new version of rock and roll racing, and maybe we can get the people at Interplay and Silico and all that to make that happen. Who is it now? Is it Bethesda? Bethesda, please make an updated rock and roll racing game with multiple players online and this all licensed music. That would be amazing. I think we'd love to see that. I sure played a whole lot of WWF Royal Rumble. At the time, this was, unfortunately, the best WWF experience we've had to this point with this game right here. A lot like the previous one, the Super WrestleMania, which wasn't great. This one is also not that great, but at least the wrestlers had finishing moves. They actually had their kind of signature move that they could do, and there's a Royal Rumble match where as soon as you eliminated someone by tossing them out of the ring, then you could, then another person would come in. So it had that gameplay. That's all I ever did in this game. I barely ever did. I don't think I ever played it once actually get the, I'm sure I did once, to get the championship title. I always played this game just as a Royal Rumble match, and that was fine by me. And you probably already know this, but the trick to this, don't have to wear them down. Whip them to the ropes, give them an arm drag takeover, you'll chuck them right out of the ring every time. They don't need to be weakened or anything. Well, we had Battletoads and Battlemaniacs. Battletoads was super iconic for the NES. It's like, oh, cool, there's a Super Nintendo version of it? It was fine. It didn't have that same heart, that charm, that feel, that thing that I was looking for when it first came out for the NES, where I was like, oh my god, this is like state-of-the-art, great animation, great music. And this game does that too. This game has awesome music, has an awesome soundtrack, it has awesome, colorful, cartoony, comic book style stuff. I don't know, it just didn't have that same feel for me, but it was still pretty cool to see. Goof Troop is a low-key, underrated, could quite possibly be in my top 10 favorite Super Nintendo games of all time, maybe even my top 5 favorite Super Nintendo games of all time, if I actually, made a list and then the process of elimination. I can't tell you why or why not, but man, what a fun game this is. 2 players simultaneous. Again, it's that Capcom Disney combination, and it's just kind of like a puzzle game. It's an action puzzle game where you can find these items and move things around, and I don't know. This game is amazing. I can't explain it beyond that. EVO, one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo as well. It came out during this time. By today's standards, it's unfortunately one of those games that goes for a high price ticket and is worth it. Now, you see some of those games every once in a while. It's like, oh, this game's going for this much money just to collect it. This game is one of the best games on the Super Nintendo, in my opinion. It works on evolution, and you evolve the way you want to evolve. You start as this little fish guy here. And then the more experience you get, then you can evolve and give yourself better jaws to bite stronger, better fins to swim faster, or ram things, or a horn and stuff like that. And then later levels, you evolve into like a dinosaur and a primate, and eventually, you can beat the game as a primate, you can beat the game as a human. I've never been able to beat the game as the bird. I'm going to work on that hopefully later this year. But I liked the idea that you could just evolve and, become the strongest of your tribe and then, move on to the next area, I guess. There's also the year we got Super Mario All-Stars. We got a combination card. This is the Super Nintendo retelling of Super Mario Brothers, Mario Brothers 2, and Super Mario 3, as well as what they call the Lost Levels, which was the Japanese Mario 2. You know how that story, I don't need to fill you in on that one. It was just fun to see. It was cool to see, and love the fact that they had this. And remind me in the comments, I swore, I'll have to look it up sometime, I swore that if you beat every Mario game in this game, like 1, Lost Levels, 2, and 3, and beat every stage without warping, wasn't there like a couple of bonus levels? Maybe it's Mandela Effect, I'm not sure. The 7th Saga came out for the Super Nintendo during this time. The Super Nintendo was an RPG beast, and this one was pretty cool. I actually liked this one quite a bit. Here's why. You get to choose who you want to play as. You want to play as the robot, you want to play as the dwarf, you want to play as the human, the demon, whatever. You get to choose who you're going to play as, which is kind of cool. What I liked, though, was in the overworld map, you can see where the enemies are. So if you're in a rush to get somewhere, you can try to avoid them best you can, or if you're looking to level grind, you can just walk into them, and then you're going to have that enemy encounter to go from there. I thought that was a super cool idea. 7th Saga, very cool. I almost called it 7th Guest. Super Street Fighter 2 is the story of of why DLC is an okay thing by today's standards. Because people are like, oh, hey, remember back in the day when you didn't have to, pay for add-ons for games, you would just unlock them? I was like, yeah, it was called Street Fighter 2, and I had to buy Street Fighter 2, then Street Fighter 2 Turbo Edition, then Super Street Fighter 2. You didn't just download the characters, you had to buy a whole new copy of the game. Well, this one has 4 new characters you can choose, including Cammy. We finally get Cammy, yay. I always liked DJ, but very fun game. It's more the Street Fighter 2, and it has new characters. Pretty cool. We also had Final Fight 2, which was pretty cool. Final Fight, this one finally features 2 players simultaneous. It's about time. It doesn't really matter. I'm always going to play as Hagar anyway. And this time, thanks to our friend Zangief, Hagar finally knows the spinning pile driver. Yay! Anyway, Captain America and the Avengers. And you gotta remember, this is before the Avengers were cool. This is because you have, Iron Man was, the other guy. Captain America was probably more upfront. Hawkeye's cool. Vision was it's cool, whatever. Yeah, it was during you can talk about parallel universe. Yeah, before the Avengers movies. The Avengers were okay, especially Iron Man. Side-scrolling beat-em-up, not done exactly very well. It's okay. It was, worth up, it was worth a rental, I guess. Maybe looking at a game like this is like, well, maybe it's okay that we didn't get the X-Men game on Super Nintendo. Maybe it's okay we didn't get the Simpsons arcade game on the Super Nintendo, because it may have looked like this. Plot was the game that nobody really had, and it was available on rental shelves, and it took you a while to finally play it. So sometimes you're like, oh, I'd rather rent this, I'd rather rent that. Oh, everything's rented out. I mean, this looks kind of cartoony. This looks kind of kid-like. I guess I'll check it out. And then when you play it, you'll learn it's a very, very good game. Very good. Well, I mean, we didn't really have a Rayman game yet for the Super Nintendo. We didn't have a Rayman game yet, but this was kind of like that, where your arms and your legs would launch as your weaponry, and then you collect them back, and then you can put them back together. I don't know. It was just. It was pretty cool. Tough enough, whatever. It's another Street Fighter 2 clone. I did play it, though. Of course I played it. I played all of them. I played everything. But yeah, tough enough. And on the front of the cover it says, like, hey punk, are you tough enough? And I was like, is that the whole title? I think it's just tough enough. World Heroes, another SNK game. Played this on the Neo Geo, and now you can play it at home on the Super Nintendo without needing a Neo Geo console. And I liked World Heroes pretty well. It was pretty fun. This was a pretty cool 2D, side-scrolling fighting game. What do we call it? Street Fighter 2 clone. Let's call it what it is. Of those, this one's pretty neat. 93, Super Nintendo finally gets Mortal Kombat. Too late. Unfortunately, this is most people's introduction to Mortal Kombat. Some of the things are changed a little bit. I do like the controller better on Super Nintendo than I did the Genesis. I'll be honest with you there. But it didn't play very well. Of course they removed the blood. That's kind of what made Mortal Kombat, cool and, whatever. The fatalities were not, I don't know. Yeah, it's Mortal Kombat on Super Nintendo, what can you say? Zombies Ate My Neighbors, this was another fun one. 2 players simultaneous, collect all of the neighbors and the people, and get rid of all the zombies and stuff like that. You'd figure for a game like this, it'd be like, okay, whatever, I get it. But man, there's a lot of people, a lot of fans with this game. I think it's okay. I like it okay. Any game that had a creepy vibe, especially on the Super Nintendo, would always get my attention. Sunset Riders, this was cool, because this was like, from the arcade to the Super Nintendo.
Whack you.
Very much time.
I told you.
I saw it in the arcade first, and then almost immediately I saw it on the Super Nintendo. I was like, oh, that was quick.
Whoa.
Nice. I'll take it.
I'll fucking murder this
It
cunt.
wasn't quite a cool game, but maybe a little bit like a Contra in the Wild Wild West.
Somebody has
to. Characters you can choose from, and you can do a 2-player on this one as well. Which is fun to see. Bigger graphics on this one, nice and colorful. We got Super Empire Strikes Back. Now, the Super Star Wars games for the Super Nintendo are all pretty decent. They're all kind of worth playing. And Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars game, so I was really looking forward to playing this one. And it's fine. It's like the other Star Wars games. It's totally worth checking out. Secret of Mana versus Secret of Mana. We need to talk about Secret of Mana. It is amazing. Super nostalgic for the soundtrack. I can listen to the soundtrack and be whisked immediately away back to high school when I first played the game. Love this game. I never beat it though, but I do love this game. And it's an action. They call them action RPGs now. It was that adventure style game where you can actually slash your sword and stuff. You can actually play 2 players on this one, which was a cool thing. Hey, there's that Ranma 1/2 game I was talking about earlier. Ranma 1/2, we finally get it for the Super Nintendo. Another 2D fighting game. I was familiar with the name, but I hadn't watched the anime yet. I was like, oh, this is a thing from Japan. For some reason I knew that. Because I wasn't even like an otaku at the time. But I knew it was something like from Japan that was popular there. I have no idea why. But play the game anyway. If you are familiar with the series, this game came out later in the series. So it features characters from like late in the series.
Dude.
You know what that means? You know what I'm talking about? So it's like, I would have liked it if they just had like, here's characters from like, the first few seasons or whatever, but it's also kind of based on the manga, so never mind the anime series. ActRaiser 2, what a disappointment. Not because the game is terrible. It's not. It's actually a very, very good game. It's just not ActRaiser. Because the ActRaiser I loved is my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time, and it's in my top 5 favorite video games of all time.
ActRaiser. ActRaiser 2 is not that good.
I knew it didn't have the town building stages. I was okay with that. Until I rented it, and I was like, had the same sound effects, great soundtrack, great graphics, didn't have the same charm, didn't have the same feel. It didn't even need to be called ActRaiser 2. It could have been called, and this is my theory, if ActRaiser 2 for the Super Nintendo was called literally anything else, it would have been more heralded as a better game. But unfortunately, because it carries the name ActRaiser 2, it's like you go from Strider to Strider Returns on the Genesis. You're just like, what? No, shut up. I don't have a better name for this. It could have been called the Warriors of Battle. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It is a decent game. It's actually pretty hard too. It's super hard. Very good game. It's just not ActRaiser. Aladdin. If Aladdin was called literally any... I'm just kidding. This is the Super Nintendo version of Aladdin. A lot of people prefer this over the Sega Genesis version. That's okay if you're wrong. This game is a very good game, all the same. Now, this game, I don't know. I mean, they both came out, different companies, different whatevers, and it's a very good game. It's nice, colorful, cartoony. This is the game that should have been on the Super Nintendo, which is good because it was on the Super Nintendo. Does that make sense?
No.
That
makes absolutely no sense.
Super Nintendo version of Aladdin. It plays just fine. There were a lot of press going into Clay Fighter for the Super Nintendo. Something about the they can use clay molding, build it out of Play-Doh or whatever, and then take a picture, and then those are the graphics. Like they digitize them and everything like that. Super ahead of its time, I thought. And it has another Street Fighter 2 clone, another 2D fighter. I thought it was pretty good. I had a lot of fun with this game. It was just fun to see. Nice and colorful, and a lot of personality with this game. Is it the best fighting game of all time? Absolutely not. But it was a lot of fun, especially in a world of really bad Street Fighter 2 clones. Well, there's Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo because Jurassic Park was everywhere during this time. #1 in the movies, all the toys, all the action figures, all the T-shirts, all the everything. So of course you got to capitalize on the video games. And although this game is made by Ocean, it's an okay. Hey, we finally get the Art of Fighting. Now, if Art of Fighting came out as another SNK game, don't need a Neo Geo to play it because you can play it on the Super Nintendo. And of the three, I kind of consider them the main three, the Fatal Fury, World Heroes, Art of Fighting. Of the three, Art of Fighting was the one that I liked the most. Me personally. I don't know why. I don't know. I just like this more than the other ones, and I had a lot of fun playing this game too. 2-player, pretty cool. The other ones that came out, they're great too. To the point where even if I play like the King of Fighters series, I play as the Art of Fighting characters in this game. I don't know. I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed this game. I enjoyed this game so much. I capture my own footage when I do these videos, and as I was capturing my own footage, I literally beat this game. I literally just kind of played all the way through this game and beat it. Just because I was like, oh yeah, it's been a while since I played this game. I just started playing it. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I was filming for a video. And we also got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. There is a version of this on NES as well as Sega Genesis. The Super Nintendo version, to me, probably the best one. Because it just plays the best, and nice, colorful, big, bright colors. Konami, love it. Yeah, they made a few of them, and all of them play differently, and I enjoyed this one the most. Fun to see, fun to have. Gotta love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. About a year and a half ago, I also covered the 1992 Super Nintendo games. The Super Nintendo came out in 1991 with an amazing lineup of games for that year. And then in 1992, so many more amazing games. How are you feeling? You got John Banks here, and whether you rented these games, you purchased them with your allowance money, or maybe you even got them for your birthday or Christmas, here are just some of the games you were playing back in 1992 on the Super Nintendo. And no skipping ahead either, because you need to let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. At the beginning of the year, we got a game called Super EDF, which stands for Earth Defense Force. The Super Nintendo did not lack in great shooters, whether they be horizontal, vertical, or... you'll see one later on in this list, too, that has an amazing look to it. But in the meantime, what a great shooter this was. Maybe you were pretty kind of done with, Gradius 3, and you're looking for that next kind of game to play. Well, if that's the case, look no further than Super EDF. When you start the game, you get to choose what kind of weapon you want, and you shoot that weapon, you can also make your little options go around you, and you can, shoot weapons that way, whatever's easiest for you. Great shooter on this one. Still fun today. Joe and Matt, great cartoony, 2-player kind of action platformer style game here. This game will always go down in my personal record book of the first Super Nintendo game I ever rented, and I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fun with this game. It may not be perfect as far as play controls go and stuff like that, but it's just fun. And again, 2 players simultaneous, you can't go wrong. You pick up your weapon upgrades. Of course, it has that kind of, prehistoric vibe to it. Unfortunately, it's games like this that make us think that dinosaurs and humans existed at the same time. But if they did, I would imagine everyday life would be a lot like this. Joe and Mac, you gotta check it out.
Shoot falling behind. Take a Bravo underway.
As we're still waiting for The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past to come out later on this year, we did get Wanderers from Ys. Now this is Ys 3. To many, this may have been the first Ys game you've ever played. Now Ys Book 1 and 2 had them on the TurboGrafx CD, maybe you even played them on the Sega Master System, and if Ys 1 and 2 is like your Legend of Zelda style game, Ys 3 is definitely your Zelda 2 style game. Instead of being top-down overworld, you have the side-scrolling going on here. Still with your RPG elements, you can level up, you can get your upgrades, you can get better swords and armor and stuff like that. One of my most nostalgic video game soundtracks of all time is this game right here. I had a lot of fun with this game, still like it today. Wanderers from Ys. This is Ys 3. I love seeing Lemmings on the Super Nintendo because Lemmings was one of those games I heard about on computers, but I didn't have a computer back then. I only had game consoles. So it's so awesome to finally play Lemmings for the first time. Imagine if we lived in a world without Lemmings this whole time, and then this game just now came out on mobile. It would be the top-selling game at Rockets. Easy, fun concept idea. You have so many Lemmings, and they only do what you tell them to do. They're just going to walk in a line back and forth. You know, they're not afraid of anything. They're not afraid of, like, jumping into fire, falling off cliffs. So you need to do what you can to get them to go in portal there. And you do that by assigning these Lemmings jobs or tasks, or, you know, having them do different abilities, like digging, like giving them an umbrella so they can float down safely without squishing. You know, so we can kind of be like crossing guards. We have to, like, put them in the way so they'll, you know, direct them in the right direction. I still like playing this game today. You gotta love it. If anything, I hope you're fortunate enough to at least rent Pit Fighter and not purchase. I liked this game quite a bit, actually, on the arcade, and even a bit on the Sega Genesis. The Super Nintendo port, not a good one. I get a lot of hate in this video, and it's not because they're so great, it's just these are the games that you played, and if you saw this game, you probably played it on the Super Nintendo, and unfortunately, a lot of us did. So, misery loves company, right? If you haven't played this one on Super Nintendo, good on you. It's definitely dated. I liked it at the time for the arcade and all that, but on the Super Nintendo, it just wasn't a good port. After years of having terrible WWF games for the NES, we finally get Super WrestleMania, which, at the time, and even a little bit now, has some great graphics to it, I think. 10 wrestlers to choose from. It doesn't matter who you choose. They all have the same exact maneuvers. There are no finishing moves. You just have your basic punch, kick, body slam. You thought I was going to say it's all in the mind. I didn't. We have, you know, body slam, suplex. You can throw them out of the ring and stuff like that. It was fine, and I still like this game quite a bit, but it wasn't great, but it was something. And it kind of was over until at least we got Royal Rumble, and Royal Rumble was pretty cool too. But that'll be another year. This game wasn't terrible, and I did play it a lot. It was something. Super Adventure Island. Now everybody loves the Monster World games. Everybody goes nuts over all these new remakes and the reboots and all these great things with the Monster World series. Never mind about all that. I grew up with Adventure Island. I want to see more Adventure Island in my life. And Super Adventure Island, I thought it was a lot of fun. It moves a little bit of a slower pace compared to the other Adventure Island games, at least it does in me. Same concept though, same idea. Your kind of life meter is constantly going down whether you're getting hit by enemies or not, so you have to constantly pick up these fruit to keep it, you know, above the grade where you need to be so you're not dying. Then you get your weapon upgrades along the way and just move along. Great music on this one. Love the colors on this one. Love me some Super Adventure Island. This game here is linear. You can go level 1, level 2, level 3. A lot of the other later on Adventure Island games would be a little bit more open world. This one is stage by stage. Still a lot of fun. Did you run Zardian back in 1992? I know I did, and I loved it. Well, it's not really a run and gun. It's like a walk and gun. Kind of a slower pace. But you have 3 characters you can choose from, and you can switch between them on the fly, much like a TMNT for the NES. You have this robot guy that can also shoot upwards. You have this weird little alien thing with like a whip thingy that also kind of shoots. And then you have Panthera, who is your panther-type creature here. You can also do the spin attack, and you know, maybe a little bit lower key so you can go under some tight-fit places. There's shooter stages later on as well, where you kind of like join forces and become a shooter stage. But I remember just having a lot of fun with this one. So maybe you checked out Zardian too. It's one of those games that sometimes you remember or think about. You're like, what was the name of that game? I know I played it. What was that? Well, maybe this was that game for you. It didn't take us too long to finally get Contra 3. This was a game that a lot of people were looking forward to. And why not? It's another great Contra game, great music, great sounds, great graphics, great colors, great everything. Has that Contra